We run a bit of a tighter ship here than you'll see in the public system. I was actually just listening to a friend of mine. I was talking to a friend of mine. They had a student in grade 2 or 3, and there was one of her classmates was so dysregulated that he would throw tantrums in class. And the tantrums got so bad that they would actually call reverse lockdowns, which means that everybody in the class would exit the class while the one student had a tantrum. And this would happen weekly. Here, I just couldn't help but thinking that would never happen. We would have consequences for the child. We wouldn't punish every other student in the class for the tantrum of one child. That's an extreme example, but we will hold students to account.
Liam Hertzsprung, an educator who used to work in a government-run school and now works in a charter school, shared that incredible story with us. It is ridiculous to force every student in a classroom to have to leave in order to coddle one student who is misbehaving. This story is part of a bigger problem. SecondStreet.org polled Canadians on the public school system, and their number one concern was the lack of discipline and accountability in our school system. 63% of respondents said that it had gone in the wrong direction, and only 17% said right direction. So where does this leave parents? What happens if you have children and you're unhappy with the K-12 education system? What are you supposed to do? Typically across Canada, parents only have 3 options: government-run schools, private schools, or homeschooling. And most parents can't afford to send their kids to private schools or take a pay cut in order to be able to homeschool. In Alberta, however, parents have a 4th option: charter schools. These are schools that are run by nonprofits instead of the government, and Albertan parents can access them free of tuition as they're publicly funded with tax dollars. Today, we're going to look at 2 charter schools in Alberta to see how they handle discipline and accountability in their schools. Calgary Classical Academy is located in Calgary, Alberta, and has a special focus on the liberal arts. We spoke to founder Kaylin Ford and associate principal Liam Hertzsprung. STEM Innovation Academy is located in Calgary, Alberta, and focuses on science, technology, engineering, and math. We spoke to founder Lisa Davis and to principal Carrie Bloom.
In terms of accountability and discipline, one of the things that is really important and rarely talked about is the impact of disruptive students on other students' learning. So we consider it to be malpractice to allow an individual student to disrupt the learning of 28 other students. That is unacceptable. And so what we know from best practice is having those clear policies and clear consequences from an educate first, right? Not from a punishment first, but an educate first. But at the end of the day, students that come here need to be a fit for our program. And if a student doesn't want to participate in our program, they have lots of other options. That's the beauty of choice. So that piece of it, the not allowing the disruption of learning for other students, is actually at the heart of our discipline policies.
So we have a very different approach to discipline than what you would find in a lot of other public schools. And I think part of this difference owes to a different way of conceiving of what freedom means and how it's achieved. So I think a lot of people have a misapprehension about what freedom is, and they think it's basically a sort of license, the ability to do whatever you want without restraint or control. And we say, no, that's actually a distortion of the more classical conception of freedom, which is the ability to govern yourself well, to order your reasons and your passions in the sort of proper relationship to each other. So we actually think that children thrive when they have an environment where there's clear expectations, where there are high expectations for them. One of the ways that we do this is we really sweat the small stuff. So we say that if you get in trouble because your tie's too loose, then your form of rebellion is going to be having your tie too loose. It's not going to be bringing drugs to school. It's not going to be, engaging in violence with other students at recess, right? So when we take really seriously minor transgressions, it means that we don't have really serious issues to deal with in the school.
Some things that are not frowned upon in the public system would be a more serious grievance here, like foul or profane language. That's actually a level 2 infraction here, which would merit at least an email home and perhaps a detention. And if it's used repeatedly, if we hear a student using swear words repeatedly, we would be talking about a at-home suspension. I remember a teacher that I worked with at my old school was somewhat bemused when her school for her child called and said that her grade 1 child was using the F word, to which she responded, "So what? It's just a word." But we know that we don't want our students to be using these words, and so that's an example of something that we would hold students to a higher standard. So I think when I talk about a higher standard in terms of academics, I also am talking about a higher standard in terms of discipline as well.
We don't reach that point because of the intentional relationships built, the intentional administration presence, the intentional policies we have in place that we work with students. Multiple times in other schools, I would be sworn at, we would be having that situation. And I can't even tell you about it here because it doesn't happen because of the respect the students have for our facility, for each other, and that respect that's created. So we don't get to a point where students' learning is disrupted from other students. Students are focused.
Both Liam and Carrie previously worked for the government school board in Calgary, and both of them said their experience working in a charter school now is far better. They emphasized having higher standards of discipline and accountability in the charter schools they are currently working at. This fosters an environment of order and respect between students and teachers who have the backing of the school administration, which ultimately leads to a better learning environment. To learn more about charter schools, visit secondstreet.org.